Of Allegiance. Could everybody please stand? I've asked Frank Santa Cruz to lead us in the pledge. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. Gilbert, if you'll call the roll, please.
John Winchester. John Samsel.
Present.
Melissa Brown Dominguez.
Present.
Kelly Lee.
Present.
Charlene Robinson.
Present.
Lucretia Free.
Present.
Tom Beresny.
Present.
Frank Santa Cruz. Here. Ed Gerber.
Here.
John Bernal. Frank Fry.
Here.
Bill Schlesinger.
Okay, thank you. First order of business from my perspective is I want to thank Charlene Robinson for filling in over the last couple of months. I think we should give her a hand. Really appreciate it. Okay, the first action item is the meeting summary. Are there any comments on the meeting summary? Okay, I have one comment. On page 2, I would like to make the number of states in the first paragraph parallel to the paper we received from staff at 40. So just changing 35 to 40. Are there any other amendments? And those were talking points that I provided, so I assume that's okay, Charlie. All right. Any other amendments to the minutes? Do we have a motion to approve the minutes with the one amendment?
Motion to approve.
Okay, Tom, is there a second?
Charlene, second.
Charlene seconds. Thank you. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any not in? Okay, we got a full chorus there. Any against, say no or nay. Okay, passes unanimously. Let's go to the next item, which we've actually been working on for a period of months, and that's hopefully a dedicated revenue source to bring in some money to help with our roads in the long run. Something similar to what the city of Tucson has done. So I just open it up for comments. I do have a couple of comments, but I want to open it up and see what people's thoughts are on the papers that we've had presented to us by staff, with much help from the finance staff, by the way, and much appreciation to them. So any comments?
I just have a couple questions.
Go ahead,
Chair
Kathy.
Berger, please.
Yes.
So regarding the property road tax, I had asked why, the Board of Supervisors didn't want to continue that. And it was something that they just didn't want to. But my question now would be, so why in 2018 did they enact a road property tax? Was that something like a dire crisis to do that, or what's the history of it?
Maybe Catherine knows the answer to that.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Verberg. That's a great question. So it was dire, I think, is a fair way to look at it. So there had been a bond initiative that didn't pass in 2015 that included some funding for road repair as well as a whole host of other items that failed. There was another bond election around 2017, also failed. And so this was really just trying to get some option that would activate some funding to do the road repair, because at that time, of course, there were the majority of roads in some sort of very poor or poor condition, and we needed to activate some funding for that. There were challenges related to the property tax because it is collected, of course, in all the jurisdictions, so all the funding doesn't stay with the unincorporated county. And so there's a series of required intergovernmental agreements with the other jurisdictions for delivery of their projects. So in lieu of continuing with that, which didn't provide, really, it was about $20 million a year, $25 million a year. They then had been looking countywide at the pay-go option, and that became a more favorable option for addressing funding for road repair.
Okay.
I don't know if that answers it.
It does, that's very helpful. Do you ever be an option coming back, or?
That's, of course, a decision for the Board of Supervisors. We would still have the challenges of how do we divvy up the money with the other jurisdictions, and
Just kind of messy.
it's not as direct as some other funding options likely.
Okay, thank you, Catherine.
That's a good start. I do remember around that time, the last bond issue that failed, that had $200 million for transportation, that there were a lot of articles in the paper with people complaining about the condition of the roads, off and on, not all the time, but there were the public, and I think if our previous chair were here, she would be commenting on how many people showed up when they were first formed complaining about the roads. So it was a high visibility topic also at that time, so I think it provided some interim funding to help smooth things out probably. So just an added comment.
I am indeed here, Tom, and that's absolutely right. We did have a number of people every meeting, lines and lines of people making it clear to us that they were unhappy with the way their roads looked.
Well, and we're fortunate, we've been able to do so much, so the lines have gone down tremendously, but it doesn't mean the issue's still not out there and may rear its head again. Any event, other comments? That's a good one.
I do, Chair.
Okay, Tom?
Okay, on page 6, the table, actual projected hurt for transportation, Pima County. I find those projections, I don't know, kind of surprising to me with, the advent of electric vehicles, more hybrid, the possibility of less gas being purchased. Do we really, is that a logical projection?
Chair Skinner?
Yeah.
If you will, please.
Another good question. So highway user revenue fees are not just the gas tax. That's the first thing to remember. So it's a collection of gas tax, used fuels, vehicle license taxes. So the county gets some direct VLT, which is not included in this table, but there's a portion of the VLT that also goes into the general ADOT distribution of what we call HERF.
So
And
the VLT goes under two places.
yes, yes. And so actually, right now, when you look at all of the different revenue sources that make up HERF, there's more of that pot that's made up of VLT at this point than traditional gas tax. So you are right that if we were relying just on the gas tax, this would be declining. But because there's other factors going into it, it does still increase.
Okay. I had one more.
Keep going, Tom.
All right. So on page 9, in the conclusion, we have paragraph, general fund should not be considered a viable funding source for DOT based on these reasons in the historical uses of Pima County and among all Arizona counties. I disagree with that. Just because somebody else is not doing it, or we haven't done it in the past, doesn't mean that we can't change it now. I just, in the rationale, for these reasons, I really didn't see anything in those reasons that would, kind of say, don't use general fund money. So, I generally disagree with that statement.
So maybe we need a however in that paragraph.
What's that?
Maybe we need a however with an added sentence or two in that paragraph. However, this might be feasible or something along those lines, even though these papers aren't final. These are still under discussion by the committee. How about if we had something added to that paragraph? Could you come up with a sentence or two for us?
Okay, okay.
You're going to think about it. Okay, good.
So our next meeting is in December, right?
Yeah, we're going to talk about this some more in
Oh, we're
December.
gonna talk
So,
about this more.
yeah, we have, just so folks know, we're talking about this the next meeting, not just this meeting, okay? Because this is a very serious, important matter in terms of the forward direction and the funding for our transportation needs. We're not just going to leave it to build up over 4 papers and then a brief discussion. We're going to be thinking about this a little bit, and there's something else I'm going to bring up too. So, but other comments or questions from folks on the papers? Good point, Tom. Because eventually, you got to think about it, these papers are likely to go to the board members if we decide to step forward on things. So having the full thoughts of the committee related to the papers, very important. So thanks for bringing that up, Tom. Okay, I have one, and it's related to sales tax. For those who have followed the history of the board and read the paper, I'm sorry, Frank, did you have something? Okay, and followed the sales tax issue, all of us know that the city of Tucson came up with half-cent sales tax, and they're earmarking that for local roads. Slow start, but they're going to get there, and they're starting to do some roads. I've seen the difference, for example, in my daughter's neighborhood, Jefferson Park. One side is all freshly paved, the other side yet to be done, but eventually I'm sure it's going to be done. So it brings up the curious question in my mind of how could we get to the sales tax as a dedicated source, because what's happened is we have 5 Board of Supervisors members, and one of them is reluctant to vote in favor. So we have 4 get there okay with this, and one in my mind, so we're not going to get there under that scenario. But the question of voting is voters to decide, possibility similar to Maricopa County and to allow the voters to decide, similar to Maricopa County and Pinal County. And there's a qualifier with that, and we're checking it out. Do we have the authority to do that, or do we have to go to the state legislature to get the authority to allow the board to do that? But it seems rational to let the voters decide, similar to what the city of Tucson did and similar to those 2 counties. And then we can ask for it be earmarked for transportation as a part of that. So I am going to ask for the answer to that question to staff, and I know they're working on that. We may even have the answer during the course of this meeting. If not, we'll have it the next meeting. But I'm personally going to ask on behalf of the committee, and I hope folks are good with this, to ask staff to come up with a scenario of what would they do, and this is similar to the city of Tucson, what would you do if you had $25 million a year earmarked for transportation for the next 5 years, and how would you spend it also at a $50 million level? And if you look at the sales tax, that's an increment, it's 0.25%. It's not even 0.5%. So it's pretty small, and I'm thinking about just unincorporated Pima County, not the other jurisdiction, just a sales tax associated that would come in with just the county. So I'm asking that question of staff, and we should have resolution by the next meeting. And if that's the case, we might think about that as an alternative to come up with some revenue going forward. And other comments on any of the other papers?
Mr. Chairman, this is John Bernal.
Yes. Hey, John.
Thank you. I know we'll probably touch on this when we get to the RTA next item, but you're probably aware that the city of Tucson is modifying their request for RTA next and including a portion of what they'd like to see for the city of Tucson going towards pavement rehabilitation. And that's one point. The other point, when you talk about going to the Board of Supervisors for an action on a sales tax, be reminded that the RTA tax is actually an election called by the Board of Supervisors. So if we are successful with RTA next reaching its conclusion, you'll be talking about a sales tax for that purpose. If this idea of Pima County having its own comes to any kind of fruition, you're going to have 2 competing sales tax proposals.
Yeah, yes, maybe. I mean, there's no assurance that RTA next is going to pass. So if it doesn't pass, then we're in a different situation. And it's hard.
No, understood and
Yeah.
fully agree.
Yeah.
Just saying, you are talking about the board of supervisors in both cases. And of course, like I said, the city of Tucson's off perhaps doing something slightly different from all of this.
Okay, good point, John. Thanks for bringing that up. Any other comments?
Excuse me, Chair Berber?
Yes.
If I can just make a comment that John Bernal, who you just heard, as well as John Winchester, they did join WebEx as a global way.
Excellent. Glad they're a part of our meeting. Okay, any other comments on the 4 issue papers, white papers I should call them, that came up? We're having a good discussion, which is what I really wanted after all this work that's been done by the staff and the interest of the committee, and frankly, just looking ahead on behalf of the constituents of the county. Any other comments?
Mr. Chair, this is Melissa Brown Dominguez. I live in the city of South Tucson, and I just wanted to make a comment because in our city, we already currently have the highest sales tax in the state, and we also are one of the, have the highest poverty rate in the city. And I also have noticed as reviewing the notes from the white paper meeting, the allocation of taxes to go to our city is very minimal. So I just want to plant that seed of, so that everybody can understand that we already have fewer resources in the city of South Tucson and already have a high tax rate. So I just want that to be considered moving forward and just thought about.
Yeah, Melissa, that's a good point, and if we were to go forward in the sales tax area, I would think some sort of exclusion could apply for South Tucson, so that could probably be worked out. I'm glad you brought it up, because that's what we want to be talking about. Any other comments or suggestions? Okay, I'm going to ask Director Skinner whether she believes they can, at least at a high level, come back with what they would consider doing with $25 million and then $50 million over a 5-year period, that amount each year for the next meeting, so we can kind of digest, you know, what would happen. And if we went to the board with a proposal, we're going to have to know anyway where the money's going to go if we want it earmarked for transportation. So we've got to have, we need that background information. Is that feasible, Director Skinner?
Yeah, I'll say at a high level, we can do that for kind of broad strokes planning purposes. Some of the other deferred maintenance items that we have in our system and the need to maintain those assets, as well as, you know, giving you all an idea of the cost of capital improvements. I think that's another piece that's often difficult to comprehend, the cost of those potential capital improvements. So.
Yeah, the nature of the request isn't a street-by-street listing. It's more like what the city of Tucson did, but says we're going to earmark this for local streets. Or we're going to do this amount for local, and we're going to do this amount for arterials. So, but whatever you would come up with in the mix of your current funding, this would be on top of it, and what would you do? Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, great. And that way we'll have a concept at least as to where the money would go if we're going to step forward with any proposal. So with that, let's move on to the next topic. There were 2 items brought up at the last meeting, I-11 and the Sonoran Corridor. Rod Lane is here from the South Central District of Arizona Department of Transportation. Rod, please come up and tell us what you know.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with everybody today. So yeah, there was a request to present to this committee regarding both the Sonoran Corridor and the I-11 corridor. I'm going to tell you up front, it's going to be brief because there's just not much really happening with them. So I brought a couple of kind of more informational slides, and then I thought we'd just have kind of a conversation to go through. So if we can flip up to the next slide there, kind of talk about what the current status of the Sonoran Corridor is. So we're entering the Tier 2 environmental impact statement, which was funded through a legislative appropriation, direct appropriation from the last session. It's a continuation of the Tier 1 study that was completed in 2020. And the outcome is going to be 15% design plans and an EIS and a record of decision, which will allow us to move forward into a DCR concept. So the Sonoran Corridor, we've just completed the negotiations and signed the contract with WSP. Oh, why I had a brain thing on that. Sorry about that. With WSP. So we're expecting that one to kick off beginning of next year. So we're going to be continuing the preferred tier alternative and move that preferred alternative into the tier 2, which takes it study from a 2 data and information down to kind of a final alignment kind of study, which we will then take into the plans in the DCR. So we can move on to the next slide. Oh, there's the web page too. I want to encourage everybody to go look at the website. The link's kind of blurred there, but it's got a pretty thorough website that has a great deal of information that's going to be updated as we move through the process quite a bit. So let's talk about...
Before we move to the next
Sure.
one, since that kind of overlaps with some other printing in the background, could you read off that to us?
Okay, hold on, I have to, it's quite extensive. https://planning/transportation-studies/Sonoran-corridor-tier-1, That's it.
Thank you. That was rather long, but now we know for sure.
I can email that to everyone and we can clear that up.
That'd be great.
Usually they make them short. I don't understand. Usually it would be like Sonoran Corridor. I don't know why this is this long. The I-11 one is considerably shorter. So the I-11 is kind of in the same spot, a little slightly behind. It's again a continuation of the Tier 1, but it's segmented. So we're only doing the northern portion. That portion in red, which goes from Buckeye to Wickenburg, was the part that was funded, again, through legislative appropriation from last year. So it's really out of the PAG region and Southern Arizona region. It's the part that connects from I-10 and then and in 93, and the intersection of 93 and 71 up in Wickenburg is where it's going to tie in. So that's the area that's going to be studied up there. So it's roughly milepost 100 on I-10 and to the intersection of 93 and 71. And it'll be the same kind of outcome with a design concept report with 15% plans and a final EIS with a record of decision also as part of that process. But again, that's only the northern segment of the DCR, and that's a much nicer web page address than the other one. So this one, we have yet to select a consultant to do it. It's going to be advertised soon, and we'll be starting that process soon. So that's kind of where we are with the implementation of the process. I put this slide on there because it kind of gives you a view, like that red line on the kind of on the right there. Do we have a pointer here? This section, oh, there it goes. Blue one, I-10. Here is so we're talking about this section, this blue one right here of 93rd alignment, and 71 goes this way. So it's this whole segment in here that's going to be studied next. And it's going to be the same process. That's what this is here, is we're essentially going from like a 2,000-foot swath to more of an alignment so that we can see what the impacts are to the exact alignment placement of it. And that's the standard process going from a Tier 2 to a Tier 1. So that is the extent of my short presentation. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, very good. Questions? Yes, Tom?
Thanks, Chair. Rod, so with the Sonoran Corridor coming out near El Toro Road in Sahuarita and the I-11 cutting off of I-10 in the same general area, would the plan be to have one exit east that cuts the Sonoran Corridor to the east and then I-11 to the northwest? Is that...
That could very well be. It's premature to do that. I will say that the Tier 1 on both of those studies, both the Sonoran Corridor and the I-11, both show a connection of I-19 at El Toro. So whether the Tier 2 segment refines that or not will be a result of the Tier 2 study.
Okay.
And that'll be, it's premature for us to make that determination at this point. But it's a possibility.
Man, it's hard for me to fathom, since I live down in that area, to have two new exits in that stretch between Duval Road and Sahuarita Road.
If you can hear in my words, and it's
Yeah.
premature.
I know. I heard you, Rod. I heard you. I heard you. Thanks.
He's still worried. Anybody else? Yes,
Mr. Chairman, this is John.
go ahead, John.
Rod, thanks for the presentation. I guess I have a related question. Has the town of Sahuarita ever really weighed in formally to any of the Sonoran Corridor proposals?
I just don't have that information at hand, Mr. Bernal. I can look into it. It may even be available on the website. There's a lot of comments that are put into the public process that are put in as public comments, and there might be something available for that on the website, but I can certainly reach out to you and let you know that.
I appreciate it, Rod. I was just curious if the city council, the town council had ever officially weighed in at all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Rod, I think one of the things that's under consideration for inclusion in RTA Next, I think is related to Sonoran Corridor, right? And it might be like for advanced right-of-way acquisition or something along those lines. So if that's included ultimately in that plan, would the intent be to basically start acquiring right-of-way from the DCR and the final EIS, or what time frame do you see on that?
Well, I can only offer kind of a guess as a time frame, and typically these things take, the Tier 2s take about 2 years. So if the RTA Next gets completed in that same time frame, they'll kind of line up. So we'll be able to have a better idea of whether that will jibe, and A, and B, yeah, what the alignment will be so that those purchases can start being acquired.
Cool, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Rod, for coming and helping address these two topics. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, let's go to the road repair update. Jason Bowley, please.
All right. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members of the committee. We're proud to present this month's update for our preservation and road repair program. So getting things kicked off, we do have, there's two shown there. There's actually going to be a third that I'll talk about. Projects that are now substantially complete. So that's really good news for this part of the year. So you can see the North Metro Area Crack Seal project was substantially complete as of the 23rd of September. This project actually came in under what the bid number was, so we were able to add a few extra subdivisions to this package, which was great news, and still have savings left over. So very successful project there. The Indian Ridge Mill and Pave project in that neighborhood off Sabino Canyon and Tanca Verde wrapped up on the 6th of October. And then the other one to talk about, it's still here on the ongoing project list, but it's that top one, the Community de Oeste Linda Vista ADA curb ramp project. That is also now in substantial completion as of the 18th of this month. So we have 3 projects in that substantial completion column. The ongoing projects, there's 3 there listed. The Heritage Hills ADA curb ramp project is ongoing. They're moving through that neighborhood and working on curb ramps and sidewalk repair as we speak. And then the other 2 crack seal projects for this year are also ongoing as well. The South Metro Area Crack Seal project is working on Aerospace Parkway right now, and they're going to continue through the rest of this month into the beginning of next month on that project. And then the East Metro Area Crack Seal Project is getting started, getting kicked off here next week. And so we're just going along fairly quick on ongoing steps right now, but it will also move along fairly quickly and be done toward the end of November. So then talking about some upcoming projects, this is the Northwest Mill and Pave project. This was awarded to Borderland Construction. The engineer's estimate was $950,000 to $1.2 million. You can see the low bid there was $1.163. This is Reddington Road and Bowes Road up there on the northeast side of the metro. I now realize that should say Northeast Mill and Pave. Oops. The completion date on this is expected by the end of February of next year. We're expecting the start on this project to be toward the late November, early December time period. So that should be getting going here fairly shortly. Another awarded project to talk about, this is the South Arterial Surface Treatment Project. This was awarded to Granite Construction. The engineer's estimate was $1.3 to $1.6 million, and the low bid was $1.272. There are 20.59 miles of road in this package. That is Lumber Highway, as well as south the road up to Lumber Street, 83, Saudi, from the town of Saudi. We're expecting for it to get started here toward the end of November, with a completion date of the end of February as well. Moving into another project, this one is in the advertised stage. This is our Costa Dobes and Catalina Mill and Pave project. This is our big hard bid package for the year. The engineer's estimate is $3 million to $4 million. The bid opening is still to be determined, but it should be within the next month or so. There are 1.38 miles of local roads and 8.01 miles of arterial collector on this job. Some of the highlight of the roads in this package include Overton Road, Camino del Oeste from the town of Marana up to Lambert, as well as Golder Ranch Road. And we do anticipate the completion date on that being the middle of June. Another package to talk about, this is the Southwest Mill and Pave. This is still in our package preparation stage, getting ready to advertise here in the next week or so. The engineer's estimate on it is 1.3 to 1.6. There are 4.57 miles of arterial collector road in this package, including Bop Road to the west of San Joaquin, Bilby Road west of Cardinal Avenue, and Valhalla Road south of Valencia. As well as there's a small section of Palo Verde in this package as well. The completion date on this will be the middle of March. And then one more to talk about, Central Southwest Surface Treatments. So this is also in our package preparation stage. It's going to follow the crack seal project that we talked about that is ongoing right now, the South Area crack seal project. The engineer's estimate for this is $400,000 to $750,000. There are 2.24 miles of local roads and 6.99 miles of arterial collector, and the completion date on it will be the 15th of April, so mid-April. Obviously, there are going to be more packages forthcoming, so keep your eyes peeled for that. Just talking about the general completion status for the program, you can see there a lot in the advertised stage, a lot moving into the in construction soon, and then we do have that complete column, the portion of the pie chart that has excitingly come back. As always, I'll remind everyone you can view the status of all the roads that are selected for this fiscal year as well as past fiscal years at the road repair map. The link is there below. And with that, I will open to any questions.
Hey, this is Lucretia. I had a question.
Go ahead.
I don't
Go ahead.
know if there are any pending projects offhand coming up in the Vale area, but what happens if Vale does incorporate and there are projects yet to be completed in that area?
I will let Catherine answer this question.
I also don't know offhand what projects we might have in the Vale Incorporation area for this fiscal year that remain. We can get that list for you. But in general, if maintaining the road is an incorporation, we state that we would stop maintaining the roads within that area. We can't spend our HERF money in another jurisdiction. You know, it is limited for our unincorporated road maintenance. Some of the bigger capital projects that may be funded by regional funding would have a different path. Right now, we don't really have a lot of those big regional projects to speak of either. But we would, you know, as we look at future years, that the area that would be the town of Vale would no longer be included within our roadway network, and so it wouldn't be a part of the roads we'd be choosing for our fiscal year 25 or beyond plan.
And
Thanks.
to tack on to that, I believe, and I will need to check on this to be certain, but I believe South Ether Road is the only road in our current fiscal year package that is within the proposed limits of the Vale, I believe.
I don't, and Lucretia, this is Tom, and correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think the proposed boundary for incorporation goes all the way down to Cerrito Road.
It may not, and that's why
Is that true, Lucretia?
I would have to check on that.
Oh, I don't have the boundaries right in front of me.
Okay. I don't think it goes that far south, Jason.
So then in that case, I don't know that we would have anything on our fiscal year 24 package that would be affected by that. But
But the roads
certainly,
that are, there's still going to be an area of Vale that may have road repair going on that's outside of those boundaries of incorporation, and those would continue. Is that right, Catherine?
Yeah.
Even though they're in Vale.
I mean, should Vale vote to incorporate, we're gonna have to take a close look at all of our active work and see what changes happen. But I don't anticipate, you know, work that we've executed right now and is underway, we'll have to take a closer look if there happens to be some within the Vale town limits, but things that would be adjacent to and are still in unincorporated county, we would continue to move forward with those projects. As a part of the incorporation documents, you know, one thing that we as an infrastructure department provide is an estimate for the value of all of our assets within that incorporated area and the estimate of future maintenance costs for those areas. So those are, you know, we try to make it as much of a known of what those costs are before this would happen. And then there's always the potential of different intergovernmental agreements. It's just too premature for me to speak as to what a future Vale Town Council may decide in terms of how they move forward with maintaining infrastructure.
Yep, of course. Okay, thank you.
Very good. Any other questions for Jason?
Chair Gerber,
Yes, Tom?
don't want to disappoint. So you go back to the South Arterial, okay, treatment.
You have
So
a
if you go
question
back-
for me.
So you go back to the South Arterial surface treatment
Yeah.
slide, and I noticed this on a couple other slides too. What is the significance of the different colors there, the purple and the yellow?
that is a great question that a lot of people, including internal staff, have. And the disappointing answer is, it doesn't mean anything.
Does it mean anything, somebody just got creative or what?
So a lot of times, those are actually, we have multiple maintenance sections, and sometimes staff will choose to color them differently. Other times, the road's just so long, and they don't want to lose their progress as they're creating the file, that they will make a smaller section so they can make sure they save it. And
They just want to use the entire box of 64 Crayolas.
you know, sometimes I think that's what happens. Yeah.
Good for them. Thank you, Jason.
Okay, any other questions for Jason? If not, thank you, Jason, as usual, for an excellent job. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go to RTA next. Director Skinner, please.
Good afternoon, Chair Verberg and members of the committee. Thank you. I'm Catherine Skinner, the Director of Transportation. Here with another monthly update on RTA Next going-ons. So since our last meeting of this group, the RTA board has met one time. That was the same week that we had our last PTAC meeting. And it was really a check-in because if you recall, the RTA board back at their July meeting gave Technical Management Committee and CAC until December to put together the plan, the RTA Next plan. So the September meeting was really just a check-in to see the progress that had been made thus far. Then to the two committees that are doing a significant amount of work to get that list together. First, the Citizens Advisory Committee. They've met twice since our meeting on the 26th. They're meeting basically every other week at this point. They went through a two-part exercise to try to further trim the project list, because if you recall, we got all of the cost estimates in, and that means that the list that they had narrowed it down to now exceeds the value of what they anticipate RTA Next bringing in. So they went through this two-part exercise to try to narrow down the project list. They are not yet to a point that they have a narrowed down list. They're continuing to meet to hopefully get there. Some of the various ranking exercises aren't necessarily the most compatible to use in conjunction with each other, so they're still really working through what is a very challenging exercise in limiting this list. Technical Management Committee has met once. They're meeting again this coming Friday. They're working through the same exercise. So the Citizens Advisory Committee is really challenged with trying to limit this, but they require the insight and cooperation with the Technical Management Committee. It's the working group meeting this Friday, so that actually has membership from both the Citizens Advisory Committee and the Technical Management Committee. And hopefully they make some progress in figuring out how they want to go about narrowing down this list. The one added challenge, and we brought it up at our last meeting as well, is that the City of Tucson City Council has been having some exercises discussing the RTA Next at their previous two meetings. And Department of Transportation Mobility staff, with their taking a Credio, as well as the city manager, wants to have been taking a fresh look at the projects that the city, Mr. John Bernal mentioned in an earlier item. One of the things in what they're looking at now is including a capital road maintenance rehabilitation. So that wouldn't be your pothole filling or your seal coats. It would be your mill and fills or reconstruction of roadways. But they're really modeling their revised list after their Move Tucson initiative, which was their transportation master plan, and kind of splitting the funding out a little bit differently than the categories that RTA Next had envisioned. So I anticipate in the coming weeks they'll be submitting something to RTA Next, which will become a discussion point for both Citizens Advisory Committee, Technical Management Committee, and ultimately RTA Board to weigh in on what this RTA Next plan looks like. From the county perspective, we are very responsive to all the questions that are asked of us from RTA Next. Some of the recent things that have kind of been project data are what phase would we want our projects to be in an upcoming RTA Next. So those of you familiar with the current RTA know that it was divided into 4 different periods of delivery, each a 5-year period. And that just kind of paced the projects out throughout the plan. So we're working through kind of envisioning what period we would want our projects to be in, as well as, just continuing to answer questions that are raised by the committees. Mr. John Bernal is on remotely. He, of course, is on the Technical Management Committee. I don't know if you have additional comments or updates you'd like to provide, John.
Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Catherine. I think probably the most difficult topic that is being raised by the City of Tucson proposal is that they start with the premise that 65% of this RTA tax is raised within the city, therefore they should receive 65% of the revenues. That's not the way this program has been approached, of course, so that will have to be addressed at the RTA board level, no doubt. But what I would suggest to Catherine for our group is that perhaps we ought to at least do the math and say, all right, if Pima County generates X percent of the revenue, how does that compare to what we're supposed to be getting now? It's a fair question. It's gonna be raised at some point by the Board of Supervisors, I suspect. But anyway, that's another part of the city proposal that I think will be challenging to address. And beyond that, I agree with what Catherine said. This meeting, the end of this week, we'll try to make some progress on just how the program is shaping up. But it's challenging, and the December deadline that the RTA board has imposed is looking very difficult. I'll just leave it at that.
Okay, John, so I guess what we were asking the staff, in this case Director Skinner, is whether you could do a comparable estimate to the city of Tucson's share of the revenue. I
Yeah.
assume
That's right.
I assume they're working on
County
that,
to
but maybe Catherine
attempt
can
to
comment.
modify their approach to match the cities. But yes, I think for the benefit of our group, we ought to at least know what the numbers are.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have started to look at that. I don't have those numbers in front of me. One of the challenges, as you can imagine, it's the percent of the tax collected is just one way you could measure and divvy it up. There's lots of different ways you can need it. So there's the population basis, and the county is very favorable in that regard because we've got, 350,000, of course, folks, million in the unincorporated, the cities have half a much smaller, and then the smaller jurisdictions have a much smaller fraction of that. So population is another metric that could be used, tax collection, roadway mileage. So we've been looking at a lot of these different metrics. Who's to say which is the right metric? I'll leave that to a different group, but it just adds to the challenges, I think, that are faced by RTA board, by the CAC, by the TMC to try to determine a plan that is regionally beneficial and regionally fair.
Good, thank you. It sounds like you are looking at more than one metric, which makes a lot of sense. So thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah.
Okay, Tom.
So the city of Tucson is still collecting an extra half-cent sell tax that is supposed to be going toward their road repair, correct?
Correct.
And so, okay. And then they want to use this money, you think, for some mill and fill type projects.
Yeah, I mean, I of course am not the expert on the city's different initiatives, but my understanding is they're divided up depending on the class of roads. So some are much more focused upon your local roadways, which is more of the tax initiative that it was recently passed by the city, whereas an RTA Next is going to look at your arterial network, those types are cultural to everyone and would focus upon those types of facilities, major collectors and arterial type.
Okay. Makes sense.
Yes, John, go ahead.
So as I guess you'd say re-ranking exercise has gone on to deal with the higher project estimates, just for the county's projects that would be in that package, how closely are those shaking out in those rankings to what you would perceive as the highest priorities for the county?
I haven't looked at it from that perspective, and I'm looking to Paul, who may have taken a closer look. I will say, I think one of our biggest challenge, we don't have that many projects on the RTA Next list, so we can start from there as a starting point. The second challenge we have is out in the Vale area, cave from Colossal Cave over we put in with tracks with widen Colossal Cave from I-10 over the railroad track, separated over to connecting Alta. That's in Blend, and that's over to Communal. So I think that's extremely expensive project. And so I think that's one of the big challenges is how do you balance out what is an extremely expensive project, but there's some real merits and needs for it. So I think that's one that's more questionable by the CAC and the TMC because of the high cost. I think the rest of ours are, there hasn't been too much more discussion, but Paul?
Not too much more discussion. There's inconsistencies with the two-part process that the citizen committee stepped through. And so the citizen committee and the TMC aren't quite sure what to do with that. So I think they're going to begin that discussion on Friday at the TMC ad hoc to see what value there may be from that two-part exercise that is showing inconsistencies with itself.
Thanks.
Okay, lively discussion. Any other questions? Very good. Thank you, Director Skinner.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, we're going to move on to call to the audience. Is Dana Corbel still on the line? Hello?
I just moved her over, waiting to hear.
Okay. Let's go to Travis Elliott. Travis, are you there?
I'm here.
All right, come on up.
Go Diamondbacks, big game today.
Right down to the podium here. Come on over to the podium.
Oh, sure.
Please keep in mind, you have three, hold on, we can slack a little bit on that.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
hear
Hold
me all
on,
right?
we have someone else at the podium, so we'll come back to you, okay?
Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. Go ahead.
Yes, Travis.
Okay. Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, for having me here today, and Javier De La Garza. He came to us, Pavement Restoration. It was last fiscal year, and we gave a lunch and learn at your office, and I'm your asphalt rejuvenation representative for the state of Arizona, and we look forward to any and all opportunities to supply you with asphalt rejuvenation. It's a product, really the purpose of me being here is it's a product that hasn't been added to your product approval list, and we're currently, right now, treating Red Rock Village for Pinell County with their asphalt rejuvenator, and Tempe, and we have three crews running right now, and it's the only, with asphalt you have maltines and asphaltines, and the maltines are the part of the asphalt that makes it, it's like the glue, it's the plasticity that keeps the rock and the binder together. And so what you're doing with our products is the rejuvenator, you're penetrating, it's 100% maltine-based rejuvenator, you're penetrating into the surface and going down about an inch down, and you're in turn tightening the asphalt structure. And we've saved a lot of agencies tons and tons of money. A lot of people refer us to as, they refer to Pavement Restoration, us who supply the Reclamite and our cool pavement product that has titanium dioxide in it, the first step of pavement preservation, because I understand you mentioned at Jefferson Park there was a relative of yours who has a new hot mix down. Well, 3 years from now, if you want to lock in that PCI rating, if let's say it falls to like an 85, 90, for a very inexpensive cost of $1.50 per square yard, you could get another 5 years or plenty more years out of that road by extending the life and prolonging those more expensive treatments like microsurfacing, slurry seal, fog seal. It's one of the most environmentally friendly and economical products there are, and we look forward to possibly a pilot working with their maintenance team, Michelle, Jason, Matt, or anyone on the team to possibly have a pilot next spring, this coming spring, this fiscal year. So $1.50 times, 35,000 square yards is, $40,000? I don't know if what the steps are to get that approved, but we'd love to show our product off. And we're not just selling the product. We take care of everything with our crews, from testing to the traffic control for the residentials. And we just were awarded a big contract with Pinell County to treat a lot of their residentials, and we've been working with them for probably about 8 years now. So
I would like to attend more of these, well organized. I'm impressed, and I drove down from Phoenix to be here, so thank you for having me. And we're also members of ATB too. We're affiliate members, so thank you.
Okay, perfect on the timing. And thanks for the information. I'm sure it will be taken under consideration, and glad you were able to come to our meeting. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Okay, now we'll go back to Dana Corbell. Still on the line?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Go ahead.
Good afternoon to everyone. First, I would like to express my appreciation for the paving that has been done in our Indian Ridge historic neighborhood. Streets that come here today, that streets and end small side ruins road connect them. That begin and end on Indian Ridge Road, just north of the Tango Verde Road neighborhood, were excluded from the paving projects that have been done in the neighborhood. When I inquired of the Transportation Office, I was told they agreed the streets in question were in poor condition. Determination evidence was PCI ratings. However, a determination was made by subdivision in some was this one neighborhood. If that's true, then why was this one subdivision excluded from the rest of the subdivisions in the neighborhood that were all paved? It made zero sense from a practical or a fiscal perspective to not pave these three streets with all of the equipment and the manpower right here. The vehicles were staged at the end of our street. The streets in question, Kayami, Topki, and Apata Street, which encompass the Club Crest subdivision, are in poor condition. Speaking as someone who has spent many years at the federal level as an occupational safety and health analyst, there are numerous tripping fall hazards on these streets where children ride their bikes and residents, some of which are elderly, routinely walk for exercise. I've lived in this neighborhood and paid taxes here for 31 years. I'm respectfully requesting this subdivision be considered for paving as soon as possible so that it can match the rest of the neighborhood. Thank you very much for your time today.
Okay, and thank you. I'm sure a closer look will be taken on your inquiry, and a response will be developed so you'll have a little bit more information as to what decisions were reached and how we'll go forward. So I appreciate your time and for stepping forward with your concerns. That's what our committee is about. Okay, we'll go to the next person, which they submitted a handwritten note of which I'll read just a part. It's similar to the previous speaker where basically there were 3 roads left out of the neighborhood. The person is William Rose. They're not in attendance, but asked that I read this. All the streets around 3 streets were paved, and those 3 were missed. Could you please let me know if they will be done soon? Thank you for your time. So again, similar to the previous speaker, I'll ask the staff to go ahead and develop a response to this inquiry, which will be sent. The gentleman left his email address and phone number, so we'll get in touch that way. Any other individuals who have stepped forward as a part of the call of the audience that we haven't listed? Okay, let's go on to the next topic, future items for discussion. One thing I will say leading into actually the last topic is we need to be thinking about our next meeting, but before that, any other topics, sort of like what we did in this meeting where Rod came and told us what's going on with a couple of key projects. Okay, then let's go ahead and talk about the next meeting. Typically this time of year, at least the last couple of years that I recall, we have holidays coming up around Thanksgiving, around Christmas, so what we've done is sort of pick a date in the middle to take care of those 2 months. And the December 12th is available in this room. It's been reserved ahead of time in case we approve it, so if we can have a sense of the committee as to whether that would be good for the next meeting, December 12th. Any comments? Okay, hearing no objections, I'm going to ask the staff to schedule the next meeting for December 12th. And we'll see all of us will be here again. let's go to adjournment. I need a motion for adjournment. Would someone like to make a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, Tom's made a motion to adjourn, and Sean is seconding the motion. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay.
Aye.
No opposed. Okay, great. Thank you all for coming. We appreciate it.